that's one thing I wanted to ask about the process was, so obviously you've got all these very different visual approaches from different animators or designers or whatever, but would you essentially get those finished, sent to you, and you had to then do the music, or would it be more of a kind of like a, well, here's a kind of here's like maybe here's an early draft, so was it a bit more in parallel, or was it like they did that then you?
Yeah, well, like sort of like the first few, when I came on the project, I think the first 4 or 5 were kind of done, and there was a lot in production. And what was really interesting, that because I did come on at a time when they were still finishing things, Kath or Stu or Susan would always say, "Oh, actually, we're going to try and make this one a bit more blue. We're going to try and make this, we want the animators to do something a bit more here. Maybe, and maybe perhaps at some points I could have done something with the sound, and they really liked that. I thought, oh, maybe we could emphasize that part of it a bit more with colours and that." So it's actually a very nice and collaborative way of working, where, because it wasn't just a finished ident, go and make some sound to it most of the point, it's really nice the fact that we could sort of collaborate and think of how we could really build the sound world in with the visuals. Is there anything that they could have done with the visuals that they were inspired by some of the early drafts, the ideas, or I was very much inspired by the visuals and what would happen. I guess they really liked the fact that I'd do certain things, and that might feedback, and
Yeah.
so that's kind of really
that,
positive.
that kind of collaborative way of working, I guess, I would say would really help the kind of the visuals and the audio to sound, or to be much more in like work in sympathy with each other.
Yeah.
So rather than here's a finished visual thing, go and lay some sound on top of that. The idea that you are actually in the process, you are kind of weaving between the other one.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I guess there's only a certain amount they can change with the visuals when they've got such a strict timing and things like that. And it's not necessarily about timings. I guess it's just about textures. I think from a sound point of view, it's very much about creating textures, and I guess from a visual point of view, it's very much a textural thing. So yeah, it was interesting. Like I didn't really think about it until we sort of finished it, but having so many animators, but then having only one person doing the sound was quite daunting. But then I guess it would have been really hard to make something so cohesive.
Yeah.
Having lots of different sounds. Like, even if you said you've got to use this mnemonic or this sound or this thing, I think it's not that kind of project where it's not. It wasn't sort of a mnemonic that you could sort of hear and go, like a little note phrase you can hear from it. It's not that kind of sound identity. It's more of a.
I think that's the thing with brand is that there needs to be some things that are quite structured, and then within that structure, that identifiable structure, you can then play. There has to be this identifiable structure, otherwise it's pointless, basically. Yeah. No one can identify it. So I think that it sounds to me that you on the visual side, you had the kind of the kind of creative directors from BBC and Super Union, and they were dealing with that kind of structural part, right? This is how it has to work. And then they would give that to animators, so that the animators could have their play, but within this framework.
Yeah.
I think you're right that the audio needed that kind of structural element, but how you got it in that sense was by you doing it.